welcome to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tell a friend to tell another friend. Like, share, and definitely leave a comment. In honor of October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I would like to share my story from victim to survivor. Domestic violence can look like this. Over the 11 years that I was in my abusive relationship / marriage, I didn't always wear a black and blue eye. Sometimes I wore hidden bruises, scratches. The convincing that things will change, but they never really do change, because your abuser gaslights you into believing that they will definitely be the change that you're hoping for. I tried to leave so many times, but fear and normalcy of a toxic environment held me captive. I still carry the mental memory of my abuse over the years. My body is still in survival mode, and more often than anything else, a loud shout or bang will trigger my PTSD. I still have to check my door multiple times before I go to bed. So this is what domestic violence can look like. But today, this is what healing from domestic violence can also look like. Being able to share my story of abuse that I suffered in silence over the years, without shrinking in shame, without feeling wrong for putting my boundaries in place, even though it took me 11 years. So hear me now. If you meet one of us today, a domestic violence survivor, give us a safe, non-judgmental space to share our journey from victim to survivor. This is what domestic violence looks like. And this is also what healing and rebuilding looks like. Thank you. My domestic abuse story started back in 2013. I remember the first time he hit me, and it was after he was finished working. I would wait on him after work, and then we would drive to his mother's house because we were staying there at that time. And I don't remember what exactly started the argument, and he punched me in my face while we were driving on the highway. I was in so much shock. At that moment, I thought to myself, what did I even do wrong? I had no idea that he had such rage inside of him. And sadly enough, my first thought wasn't to call the police. I was so shocked. I held my face, and when we got to his mother's home, I pretended as if nothing happened. And that was the first time it happened. And I believe this was probably maybe like 6 months into our relationship. And of course, he gaslighted me. And at the time, I had no idea what he was doing. I was very young, I was in my 20s, and he was an older person to me. And so, I believed what he told me. I, worked with what he told me. He's gonna change, it will never happen again. But crazy enough, it did happen again and again and again. And it happened for over a span of 11 years with this individual. It happened before we got married. It happened during the marriage. It happened when I was pregnant with my son. It happened after my pregnancy. And it continued to happen throughout the years. And as my son got older, he started to witness a lot of the physical violence that his father would put to me over the years. He started to know, like, this is not right. And he started to put himself in a place where he became my protector. And as a mother, that was a big burden for my child to bear. And that's when I made the decision that enough is enough. And I decided to leave. So I asked him to pack his stuff up and get out of my apartment. And of course, I started to learn that I was actually with a narcissist. So in the very end, I had to call the police to come and change my locks and to make sure that he was out of my apartment to be able to go back in with my child and feel some form of safety. And so that was how my abusive story came to an end. This man abused me during my pregnancy with Chosen. And he would always punch me in my face, box me in my face. And so during my pregnancy, I went through a lot. I went through a lot that I did not talk about. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, even financial abuse at that time. I remember even when we had our baby shower and persons had given him monetary gifts for the baby. And I was on Welly, and so they had provided even a check for me to be able to get a crib for my son. And he took that money and he kept it to himself so that he could buy weed and so that he could fund his lifestyle. This man has never bought a pack of diapers. He's never contributed for a pack of diapers nor a can of formula for his son. And I remember after I had him, and so I had him in October, I had to have him early because I was developing preeclampsia. And I was developing preeclampsia because I was going through a lot. The day before I had my son, he had actually assaulted me downstairs in the garage. And I covered it up, but there was a big scratch across my nose. And if I can find a picture, I'll probably put it in here. And that was from him, because he had boxed me in my face in the garage and his nail had slashed me across my nose, cutting me. And this was while I was pregnant. Yes. There were other incidents, but I think the two incidents that spoke volume after my son was born was we had gone to his sister's apartment for Christmas, and my girlfriend was with me at the time and her daughter, and I was struggling postpartum, breast milk, all of that. And so I was trying to figure out formulas for Chosen. It was like a really bad snowstorm. It was just bad that day. And I had left Chosen with his mother, and she was complaining, oh, I left the baby, and the whole works. And I left my child to go and source formula, because nothing that I was giving him at the time was staying down, and he was griping in pain. And when I came back, he was not pleased, and he decided that he was gonna fight me like a man in that apartment. Bearing in mind, I just came out of the hospital at the end of October. I had a C-section, and it was his brother that had to get in between us and pretty much get him off me. And that was one of the incidents. And his family is fully aware that he is physically abusive towards me. His mother is aware. His sister is aware. They do know, and they do actually uphold his behavior. They actually give him a pat on the back and say, good job, son. Good job, brother. You're doing so great at being an abuser to your wife. I remember the day I was leaving the hospital, and I just needed some help to put on my shoes because, I had a C-section. And this man that I was married to at the time, he looked at me and he said, oh, me not help you put on no shoes. You want pitney? Your problem that. And I did what I had to do, and I got going. There was another incident where we were coming home from his sister's, and Chosen was crying because he was hungry. And I was just asking him to give Chosen a bottle because I was the one that was driving. He was in the back with the baby, the back of the car. And he was like, oh, he's not giving the baby any food. He must wait till when we reach home. So I said to him, he's a baby. He doesn't know. Like, Chosen was like either 3 or 4 months at that time. And when we got into the garage and I parked the car, he went full rage on me in the garage and started to beat me up, telling me, oh, now tell me what to do with my pitney. If me say a this or this, and if me say a that or that. And he was so aggressive, and he got me upstairs to the apartment, and he kept going off and off and off. And over the years, I have dealt with trauma where I go silent, I say nothing in hopes that it will calm the situation. But at the time, what I did not know is that I was dealing with a narcissist. So the quieter I stayed is the more enraged he got. And when we got upstairs, at one point he was going off on me, and Chosen started crying. I went in the room and I got Chosen, and I was holding Chosen in my hand, just hoping that, even seeing his child would let him calm down, because it wasn't that serious. And he boxed me so hard with my baby in my hand, I fell over into the shower, and Chosen was screaming, and I felt so helpless. I felt so helpless because in one breath, I'm trying to keep my family together, and in the other breath, I don't know, like, this is the normal I'm used to. So do I stay or do I leave? And then, of course, they have the most amazing way of gaslighting you, that it will never happen again, and they're sorry. And of course, he went to get roses, and he, did the whole works and all of that. And over the years, more and more and more stuff happened. And every time something else would happen, I would make excuses. But I remember in 2023, when I was off work and I had to be traveling doing my body sculpting business, and every time I would have to travel, he would ask me, oh, who's keeping Chosen? This is Chosen's father asking me that. Yeah. And so I had left Chosen with my mom one weekend, because I always travel on the weekend for trainings. And I had left Chosen with my mom, and he had called me and we spoke. And I let him also know, like, I left my bank card with my mom. So if Chosen needs anything, yes, I would have to leave money for my child. This man would not help in any way, shape, or form, even though he's right here in Canada with his child. I get a notification on my phone saying that somebody tried to use your card at the weed store. So I called him and I'm like, did you go for Chosen? Oh yes, he went for Chosen. And I said, why did you go and swipe my card at a weed store? Oh, and it caused a huge argument. And that was the day that, I'm in Bahamas, and I said, yo, I want a divorce. I don't need to be going through this. Like, can you imagine? You're traveling and you're training these women, you're empowering these women, and you're living at home with someone who minimizes your worth. I was done. And so I texted him and I said, listen, when I get back to Canada, I want a divorce. I am done with you. Enough is enough. Anyways, I got back to Canada and he texted me and said, oh, are you back yet? And I said, yes. He's like, oh, did you go and file the stuff? I said, not yet, but I am going to the courts. So unbeknownst to me, there was a whole process of separation, all of that. I thought getting a divorce was something that I could just go to the courts and have it done right away. I did not know. So anyways, with that being said, I got home. He's like, oh, he wants to talk to me. So during the talk, it was where he started to let me know, oh, how I wasted his time, and if I knew I wasn't gonna be with him forever, then why did I make him marry me? And it started to become unhinged, and he started to head to the kitchen, which was a bit scary for me. So I started to de-escalate the situation and pretty much told him what he wanted to hear, because he has pulled a knife on me twice already in my apartment. The last time he did that was simply, it was during COVID time. Chosen and I were playing in the living room, and he just came out so enraged and started going off on us. Oh, he has work the next day, we're making up too much noise. And I simply said to him, like, okay, then like go back in the room and close the door. The man went into the kitchen, pulled out the knife. Chosen is seeing everything. He comes up to me with the knife and is threatening that he's gonna kill me. I had to put my phone in the sofa and had it call 911. It was so scary. It was to see my son run into his room because he was so scared was hard. That night the police came, they arrested him, he was charged, all of that was done. So anyways, that was the situation, and that was why when I saw him go into the kitchen, I kind of just told him what he wanted to hear. But I knew at that time that mentally I was done. I was done. And so I went and I started to find out the process in the courts. They explained to me I would have to separate from him for a year before I can file for my divorce. And so, I started to look into those things to get that done. And then there was a big incident twice, December of 2023, where in this same rec room space that I do my videos sometimes, he had assaulted me. And like Chosen witnessed so much. My son witnessed so much. And there was another incident where we left his sister's place the Christmas night and was going to his aunt's place, and we got into an argument because I said, like, listen, I want to go about my business, like, I'm done, like, go and live your life. I want to live my life too. And it was a whole argument. He started punching me in my face, and my son was witness to it all, at the back of the van, screaming, crying, because he was in so much fear. And then when he got to his aunt's house, he went in and he pretended and he told her, oh, Melissa is not feeling well. She's not feeling well at all. So the aunt had no idea that he was physically abusing me on the way to her house that night. And that was pretty much how he would hide and be a chameleon when he was doing these things. And I remember that night, one of the time when he was walking off and he turned around and he looked at me, and it was so demonic. And he's like, me hate you. And I never forgot that. I never forgot the demonic look that I got that night and those words that were said. So we get to Christmas, going into New Year's of 2024, and after everything that we experienced, especially my son, you go back to school, they're like, oh, how was your Christmas holiday? I just didn't want these memories that he had witnessed over the Christmas to be his only memory. So my mom was in Jamaica, and I decided I'm booking a flight for my child and I headed off with my son to Jamaica for the new year. And we came back, I think, like the second or the third week of January. So he had missed some time from school. And, you know, that was just in hopes that, you know, when they do ask him, how was your holidays? It was just like he wouldn't only have the bad memories to think about, but he would also have some good memories. And, you know, so fast forward a bit closer to like the end of February of 2024. And I remember one day my son and I, we were outside, and he, you know, that's when he was telling me about the other woman that his dad had. And, you know, I decided that I was gonna put a bug in my room, and that was how I was able to catch on to everything. I think during the time that I was traveling a lot for training, I would say the traveling was my escape. It was my escape from the mental prison that I was stuck in. And so during this period, he was having an affair with someone else. And I think the part for me that was like the most hurtful is that you're out there doing these things, but then you come home and you still beat up on your family, or who is supposed to be your family. And so with knowing all of that information, you know, I also took marriage very serious. And that's why I stayed for as long as I did. I would go and I would talk to my bishop, and, you know, my bishop would say to me, oh, daughter, just forgive him. You know, I remember one time I went and I was talking to him, and he said, oh, well, you know, what would Jesus do? You know, he forgived. And I think that was a part of the reason too why I was so ashamed to say anything, because I felt like I was wrong if I said anything, because a good wife forgives and doesn't, you know, hold it over their husband's head, even if you're in that type of situation. Because I mean, this is my bishop. He's the one who married us, so I'm gonna listen to his instruction as my earthly father that was put in place, where my spiritual well-being is concerned. And I remember just having to make a decision at some point, because my son had reached a point where he was saying to me, Mom, I just want it to be me and you. He would be like, don't go in the room, like stay in my room so I can protect you. And I started to see how much this was affecting my son. And I think something inside of me just snapped, and I was just like, I'm leaving this guy. Like, even if I have to do it scared, even if I have to watch over my shoulder when I leave, but I'm done. Enough is enough. And so June 1st, 2024, I told him to leave my apartment and never come back. And of course, he found a way to still be at my apartment, with the understanding that he is looking his own space, and that was just not the truth. So by the end of August, I had to call the police to have him removed from my apartment. And so that was how I was able to get out of my domestic violence situation. And I no longer look at myself as a victim, but I am a survivor of domestic violence. and this is my untold story of domestic violence, suffering in silence. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, tell a friend to tell another friend, and I hope this video helps another woman who may be in the same situation to be able to get up, get out, and rebuild your life again. Like, leave a comment, and share. Thank you, guys.